Hi guys. Before we head over to the show, I'd just like to say that if you enjoy the content that I produce here and want to help support the show, for $2 a month, you can get ad-free episodes on Patreon. That's patreon.com/heavy metal tones. I'm also available on all streaming platforms and on YouTube. Please do head over to either one of those to support the show. If you feel so inclined, please do email me at heavymetaltones@gmail.com. That's heavymetaltones@gmail.com, where you can request, show ideas, album reviews, interviews, and so on. Otherwise, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Before we had AT&T Business Wireless coverage, our delivery GPS wasn't the most reliable. Once our driver had to do a 14-point turn to get back on route. A 14-point turn! An influencer even live streamed the whole thing. Not good for business. Now with AT&T Business Wireless, routes are updating on the fly and deliveries are on time. And the influencer did get us 53 new followers, though.
AT&T Business Wireless. Connecting changes everything.
All new drinks are now at McDonald's. Like the strawberry watermelon refresher, the mango pineapple refresher with popping boba, and the Sprite berry blast topped with cold foam. Who knew ice cold drinks could be so fire?
The sun's out, and so is our new drink lineup. From the Blackberry Passion Fruit Refresher to the Dirty Dr. Pepper. And they all pair perfectly with some fries. Refreshers contain caffeine. Va-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans. I'm enjoying the adulation and crowd after that fabulous intro of mine. This is really apt, the bubbling sound underneath for this week's episode, as we're going to talk about live albums and the way that they are produced and made now, as they were in the 70s, 80s, and so on, and why are they, if they are still relevant, and are people still using them in the same way? And if I can get my head round the next, I've been trying to get my head around the top 5 of the latest live albums, so that will come in the second part. But here we go. Live albums, are they relevant? The evolution of the live album. The live album, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, was a way for me for a long, long time. In fact, only up until the advent of streaming platforms, to find whether I liked a band or not. Often what I would do is someone would mention a band to me, or I'd read about it in a magazine or Kerrang or Metal Hammer or and any of those sort of weekly and bi-monthly publications before the internet. And I would hear, possibly if I was lucky, one song that might be on the radio. Most of the time it wasn't. But if I would go to the record shop, and there in the record shop, say Our Price, my local record shop, or Loppy Lugs, in another one in Edgware. Shout out to Loppy Lugs, who aren't there anymore, sadly. You're flicking through the records, and say you see a good example for me was Marillion. This is a good example. My good friend at school, Justin, he listens to the show. Hi, Justin. I remember it vividly. We were on I don't know what we were doing in the shops that morning/afternoon in Edmonton. I'm not sure what we were doing. I'm sure we should have been at school, but he poured out Kick by In Excess. I was like, I'm not interested in that. And then we walked to the end of the aisle of the records, and he pulled out Misplaced Childhood. And I sort of instantly fell in love with the cover art. He knew the band before I knew the band, and I trusted him implicitly because he was one of my musical heroes. He had so much knowledge, it was crazy. Such a educated ear. Anyway, I went home and thought nothing of it for a little period. But my brother and I were in on Oxford Street in London, and he used to know this record store that he would go to, and they did lots of bootlegs and underground copies and tape sharing and all this sort of stuff. It was really like a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more kind of situation. And we went in, and behind the guy on the wall, he had a poster for Assassin, the first single off of the Marillion second album, Fugazi. Now, I had seen that album in the racks, um, along with all the other Marillion albums up to that point. I do believe that Clutching at Straws hadn't been released yet. And for a few, like my brother was buying his cassettes. I think he was getting a few Genesis um, and ELP bootlegs. And he said, I noticed the poster and I was looking at it, and the guy behind the counter, lovely guy, he was like, "Do you like Marillion?" And I said, "Well, I don't know much about them." And he said he gave me, or my brother bought it for me, but at a very, very cheap amount, of this really badly photocopied on green card um, sort of live album from them at the Marquee in '82, and I took it home and put it on in my little Walkman, and for all of the crappiness of the recording, I could hear the bare bones of a band that was going to change my life musically, because they were musicians. They weren't fake. You have to remember, I was growing up in a period where there's a lot of fakeness in the music industry, as is now. It's very, very circular, but you didn't know who was playing what was where, what was real. You just didn't. You just didn't. I mean, we just have to say Milli Vanilli to people and Bros and things like that. You know that the Stock Aitken and Waterman era of the world was taken over, and rap was becoming pervasive amongst the musical genres, and therefore we who love real instruments and real music, and that's really being very cocky with saying real music, because all music has its place, but who liked bands who played their instruments live. When I heard this band, I remember vividly lying on my bed. We lived in a house with no carpet. It was all floorboards, and my bed was near the window on the second floor, looking out the window onto the street and the street lights. And I remember lying there with my head on the pillow, my little Walkman headphones on, the moonlight streaming through the window, and just playing this cassette and being taken away on this magical journey. So what did I do? I went out and I bought their official live album. I managed to get a secondhand copy, reel to reel, bought it for a couple of pounds, and it was a more polished and clean version of this live album, of this band that was so viscerally brilliant live, that often, sadly, is not captured in the studio. A lot of times it's the same with a lot of bands, and this is why live albums, if they're not tinkered with too much and they're left to be what they are, is a good snapshot of what a band truly is. So a lot of live albums that come out and came out back then and still do come out now are overlayered. They go back into the studio and tinker with them. They'll tell you they don't, but we know they do, because product has to be perfect to sell it. Have we learnt nothing from punk people? Have we learnt nothing? Probably not. But that's exactly what they do. They polish it and they make it. They add crowd noise in and cut and paste crowd noise. If there's no crowd noise, they'll cut out banter, but the banter should be in there because that's part of the fun of a live concert. The awkward pauses where they might be changing the guitar or something like that. This sort of nuances that you lose when you clean it up. Where was I going? Where was I going with this? Where was I going with this? Oh yes. So this is I think this is why a live album, as I said, is so important if left unadulterated, because if you love the music, you want to know in your deep heart of hearts, whether you admit it or not, you want to really believe that you're going to see this band live one day. And if it's a band that have long since gone, the Beatles, the Who, Led Zeppelin, first first incantations of Deep Purple, Rainbow, early lineups of Maiden, all the bands that might shape you as a listener and a musician. You're not going to, if unless you were there, you're not going to know, or you weren't there. So to understand a band at its truly most performative and most entertaining and interesting is live. And there are bands out there who we will never see live. One of my bucket lists was Gary Moore. I know he's not a band, but he's a singer, a guitarist, and also XTC. That will never happen. But I do have some brilliant live recordings in my collection, and it's available to everyone to listen to that particular era of the music. And I went back to that same shop, just to remind me. I went back to the same shop with my own money to buy more cassettes from this guy. And what I said to him, I remember vividly, I said, "Oh, is this?" He gave me an album. It was live in the Pink Pop Festival in Holland, I think it was. And he said, "There we are." And I looked at it and I went, "Oh, I know all these tracks." And he goes, "It's not the music. It's not the tracks. You're not hearing different music, but you're hearing the different interpretation of it at that live moment." And it stuck with me. Like he goes, "Don't be silly. It's not the different. It's not new material. It's new material. It's old material heard through new ears." And I really, I sort of walked away with a tail between my legs because I felt a bit silly that I didn't really think of that. And I bought the cassette, which I still have, and walked away and thought, yeah. So that one moment, that one conversation really stuck with me, and it has stuck with me ever since. I can still see it to this day, actually, what he looked like, where the shop was, everything. It's stuck in my mind. So live albums, where are they going? What's happening? I honestly thought that the era of the live album was dead and buried, genuinely, until I started looking at into the results that I picked up um, on the researching this show. Listen to this, folks. In 1985, there were between 15 and 30 live albums recorded, produced, and released. In 2025, the number is between 250 and 500 plus. Now, I genuinely did not expect that kind of growth. Now, looking at the reasons this is the case is because of the recording, the way the bands can record their shows. So it makes common sense. Back in '85, a recording lab was expensive. You had to have mobile trucks. You had vinyl and CD manufacturing costs were high. But now, of course, you've got digital mixing desk can record old multi-track shows there and then. Some home studios, mixing and mastering can be cheaper. Streaming services mean there's no need to press thousands of physical copies. And many bands release live albums digitally after every tour. Marillion do that a lot, actually. So do Iron Maiden, I believe. So I believe. That one could be incorrect, but I know Marillion definitely do. So I then looked deeper down into it, and why? Yes, I know that the manufacturing costs do change it, right? But what are the differences in the manufacturing costs? And I dive deeper. So, in 1976, a typical live album between the cost between 30,000 and 80,000 US dollars, which is equivalent to 170 to $460,000 now. No way on earth is a band or label going to spend $460,000 on a live album. Just not going to do it. In 2026, the independent live albums cost between 5,000 and 30,000 US. And in 2026, major labels, the live album costs 250,000 to 250,000. Still nowhere near the 460,000, right? And the breakdown, interestingly enough, of the cost of a live album back in '76, according to research is that the mobile truck would cost between $5,000 to $15,000. You needed a 24-track analog tape machine. You needed reel-to-reels, lots of them. You needed recording engineers. You needed a mixing commercial studio. You needed an analog editing and physically cutting of tapes. And you had vinyl mastering and test pressing. Right. By 1977, the recording industry estimated that even standard album recording budgets commonly ranked between $50,000 to $75,000, with estimated artists often spending between $75,000 and $300,000 on live albums, generally required a little bit more because of the mobile recordings. But in 2026, professional live albums can be captured with equipment that fits in a backpack. Digital multi-track recording, laptop-based recording software, digital mixing, digital mastering, streaming release, no manufacturer required. Okay, so we have come with technology has come the ease of recording live albums, but has that brought the quality of the live albums down? Now, that's something we can talk about in the next part of the show. But if you think about all the great live albums that you can think of that mean stuff to you, like Live After Death, like Unleashed in the East, although Unleashed in the East had a lot of overdubs on it, so we could probably put that to the side somewhere. The Who live in Leeds, right? All those kind of Made in Japan, just you could sort of you could name a load of live albums off. Busting Out by Jethro Tull, one of the best live albums ever made. There's lots and lots. As I said, Reel to Reel for me is one of my personal favorites. There's lots of them. I've already talked about live albums and my favorite ones. Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy. Things, all these amazing albums. Peter Frampton, goes live, and it's all that stuff is something that I wonder if modern albums can replicate. Because if you think about it, if it's easy to cut and paste the live sound audience, take a good bit of a cheer, move it through, make it sound realistic, like I did at the beginning of the show, that's just a piece of audience noise that I downloaded from Free Sounds, which I use all the time, and put on. I mean, you could put that under any concert, couldn't you? And people wouldn't know. They wouldn't know. Uh, but with the older, more analog options with the bands from the past, they didn't have that option. They couldn't go and record just audience noise. They weren't. They were just getting it directly from the 24 track streaming out. I read about Live After Death, which is one of my favorite albums of all time as well, that it went straight out from the arena into the sound trucks. It was recorded, and then right after the concert, Steve Harris spent all night. He was up all night re-listening to that show and going through it, and trying to work out what was going to go where and what they were going to leave in, if they were going to leave anything or take anything out. Just pure magic, because he would have spent, so that's like 24 hours of his life, probably obviously a lot more. Whereas if you go home, recorded it, go home, stick it in, download it, sit in front of a computer, cut and paste where you want, it's very, very simple. There's no physical editing needing to be done. Does that make the live albums any less better than, say, Unleashed in the East, as I said, Made in Japan, Live After Death, Live at Leeds, Live and Dangerous, Frampton, comes alive. I mean, I said goes alive before, comes alive. Is there anything out there that's equivalent? I wonder if there is. So we'll come back on the other side, and I'll have a quick listen. I'll go through a quick list of the ones that I think are comparable today, which ones I like. I can't tell you if they are overdubbed or not overdubbed. I can't. I'm just going to listen to the album itself and tell me what I think of it. So don't come back. If any of the audience know that a particular album I've put up is been heavily overdubbed and heavily polished, well, that is unfortunately, as I said before, a downside to what's happening with live albums now. Do any of you out there listening, have a live album that got you into a band? Did you use live albums to get into bands? I'd love to know. Please do let me know. Private message me on my Facebook or email me. I'm on, or message me on YouTube. Anywhere. Just, Spotify Messenger, whatever you like. I'd love to know because that was my journey, finding an album through through the live album, and then going directly to the band. Is there a downside to it? There probably is. If you hate the live sound, but you might love the studio sound. Who knows? Have I missed out because I didn't look for bands unless I knew there was a live album? I didn't do that. I just want to say that I didn't do that. I mainly would find a live album if there was one available to me to find that. I just knew that I wanted to do a live album first. Anyway, enough of me chatting. Here's going to be some breaks. I've got a bit of music for you now. I hope you enjoy this. This is something that was sent to me during the week. Let me read you the blurb of this band, Legion of Decadence. This was sent to me, as said, in my inbox. I get a lot of stuff sent to me. So for me, I just want to sort of I cherry pick what I think I really enjoy, and I really enjoyed this. Legion of Decadence is a heavy metal band from Quebec, Canada, founded in 2006. Over nearly 2 decades of activity, the band has built a diverse and evolving discography with 5 albums released and the sixth full-length scheduled for May 2026. Refusing to be confined to a single stylistic lane, Legion of Decadence moves fluidly between the foundations of pure heavy metal and darker gothic atmospheres, while occasionally incorporating thrash, intensity, and progressive elements, subtle touches of death metal. I'll stop you there. The progressive stuff on this album is fabulous. The last 3 tracks, I'll say that. This stylistic versatility allows a band to maintain a classic metal backbone while continuously exploring new textures and dynamics. The sound balances melody, heaviness, and depth, appealing to listeners who appreciate both traditional metal roots and modern evolution. Right down my alley, really. Right in my alleyway, really, really, right in my alleyway. With a steady growing catalogue and a commitment to creative expansion, Legion of Decadence continue to strengthen their presence within the Quebec metal scene. And as the world at the moment is going through World Cup fever in Canada, America, and Mexico, why not have some of our brilliant Canadian brothers' music here? I mean, I'm a huge fan of Kirith Ungol, one of Canada's greatest bands, and of course Rush as well. So this particular song that I've chose, Stranger Danger, the second track on the off of the album, please check out their 2015 album Desolation and their 2017 album Yesterday's Over. This allowed them to play in much bigger musical scenes. They had a hiatus, and in 2018, was born in 2023 with a new album, Swing It By, released on June the 9th of the same year, and reconquered the stages of major cities in Quebec. So they're really ripping up their local stages by storm. They had a new album in 2024, Digging Up the Past, with the arrival of Delphine Morissette on vocals and a new provincial tour. So a little change lineup. I love the new singer, Gagnon, Gagnon. If I said that wrong, I've spelt that right. I am sorry. I'm terrible with my French pronunciations, which is, it happens. Corinne Gagnon, Gagnon. Anyway, the album was released on the 9th of May this year, and on an independent label. It's the No Road Left to Burn by Legion of Decadence, and this is the second track off the album, Stranger Danger, a brilliant track off a brilliant album. I highly recommend you reach out and listen to it. Enough of me gabbling on. Away, Legion of Decadence with Stranger Danger. Welcome back to part two. That was Legion of Decadence with No Road Left to Burn album and the song Stranger Danger of a very interestingly proggy metal album. I highly recommend you having a listen to it. Anyway, I'll put links in the show notes below, blah, 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 and all that stuff, so you can go and find them and have a listen to them because they need to be more, they need more ears on the underground than they should be. Uh, I'd so prefer that over ads, don't you? Well, I mean, I'd rather play I'd rather play an album, but I'd rather play a track every episode in the middle instead of adverts. Unfortunately, ads do pay me a little bit of money, and playing music doesn't, sadly. If you want to help, please do go to, as it says right at the beginning, go to my Patreon page, like and subscribe, sign up $2 a month. You don't get a lot for it. To be honest, I don't have time. But what you do get is you get help me keep the lights on and the record deck spinning, and give me the opportunity to play music like this, which you probably wouldn't hear otherwise. Anyway, where were we? Live albums. My top 5 new live albums. It's a real tough one because I keep heading back to the rich, dense, traditional live albums of the 70s and 80s. You know, the ones that we all feel very protective and in awe of. Live at Leeds by The Who is an absolute top class. Busting Out by Jethro Tull, another world class album. A band at its best, at its jazz fusiony, proggy blues rock best. And then of course you've got Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, you know, Deep Purple. They've all done it, haven't they? They've all done a live album, and every single one of those bands is an album that you could go to and go, "Yep, that's represents the band that I know and love, or I want to know and love." But what have we got now? I mean, as I said before, the most relevant um, genre of live albums happens to be metal. It's where it seems to be living at the moment. So I thought I won't go off that beaten track and look for different genres like prog or whatever. I'm gonna stick to 5 live albums of the last 10 years, but they they won't be in any order. I'm not going to do 5 down to 1. I'm just going to do 5 that I like listening to and I recommend, and I'll give a quick overview of what I think about them. All right, so where do we begin? At the beginning, I hear you say. That's obvious, isn't it, Tony? At the beginning. Right, so at number 5. Now, I'm going to say number 5, but as you said, as I told you, it's not in numerical order. I'm going to start with Opeth's Garden of the Titans, live at Red Rocks Amphitheatre, 2018. A breathtaking, career-spanning performance of one of the world's most stunning natural venues is the Blurb. Now, I go through phases where I really like Opeth, and I also go through phases where I get slightly bored of them, and that is all with all progginess. If I'm in the wrong mood for progginess, it will just leave me drained. If I'm in the right mood for progginess, it will uplift me. And this album is on the latter. It's more uplifting than downing, right? It's not a downer of an album. Even though Opeth's music is dark and is textured, and I haven't really covered them on the show, but I do intend to do so. This one is a great one to grab, to hear a band at its sort of creative best in an environment that is unparalleled anywhere. Live outside arenas are, if the sound is controlled correctly, and it's hard to control because you have natural environments, wind and so on. If it's controlled correctly, you'll get an absolute stunning sound. And this is one of those ones. Open Sound has always been amazing live. It's always been very much a crafted and technical sound. So this one, Garden of the Titans, live at Red Rocks Amphitheatre. It's their 4th live album. It was released on the 2nd November 2018 and recorded at Red Rocks Amphitheatre in Morrison, Colorado, United States. as the band was touring in support of their album Sorceress. It's their very final live album to feature Martin Eisenot on drums. Axenot. I really can't pronounce these, these names. Anyway, you've got the track listing is Sorceress, Ghosts of Perdition, Demon of the Fall, Wildflowers in My Time of Need, The Devil's Orchard, which is one of my favorites, Cusp of Eternity, Heir Apparent, Era, and Deliverance. It's an 86-minute album. It won't be the entire tour, of course, but it would definitely a show, but it would be close to it. It did do very well. I got to number 11 in the Australian, UK independent charts, number 7 in the US independent charts. I mean, it's just the way it is. It is, of course, it's Opeth. What more can I say? The album cover sort of mimics In Rock a bit. Great way of getting into the band. I said there's 3 other live albums. This is the one from this period that I enjoyed because I liked the audience sensation and the feeling of being there amongst the crowd with the band playing along. It's very spatial. It's very it works perfectly uh, for this kind of music. From the same year and the same vein, and actually oddly connected with Opeth, is Stephen Wilson's live album Home Invasion in concert at the Royal Albert Hall. Now, this is the second live concert released by Stephen Wilson. It was released on the 2nd November 2018, so not soon after the Opeth one. It was filmed on the final night of Wilson's 3-night residency at the Royal Albert Hall in London, which is part of the To The Bone tour. Now, I would be honest, I didn't enjoy the To The Bone tour as much as the previous tours that I'd seen him on, but this particular live show captures a musical genius at the home of beautiful music, the Albert Hall. I've been there, I saw Fish there, Status Quo there. Anyway, great sound. Okay, if you imagine it's similar to as being as important as the Sydney Opera House, right, for Australian listeners. And this particular live album, the CD that comes from it, okay, because it was also released on vinyl, was and a live DVD to watch. But the vinyl version is what I have here. It's 6 tracks, right? If you go to the CD version, of course, there's a bit more. It's a double CD. You get Truth, Nowhere Now, Pariah, which is beautiful, Home Invasion, Regret Number 9, The Creator Has a Master Tape, Refuge, People Who Eat Darkness, brilliant, Ancestral, Arriving Somewhere But Not Here, another masterstroke of work of his, Permeating, Song of I, Lazarus, Detonation, the same Asylum as before, which is actually one of the best tracks on that album. Song of Unborn, Vermilion Core, Sleep Together, Even Less, Blank Tapes, The Sound of Muzak, and The Raven That Refused to Sing, which is, beautiful, beautiful album. And of course, things like Detonation's 11 minutes long. He really shows with this live album. This is a key example of why I would buy a live album first, because this gives you an absolute insight into the musical abilities and genius of the performers themselves and the band that he has built round him. The vinyl release actually has some extra tracks on it. Routine, Hand Cut and Raise, Heart Attack in a Lay-By, which is one of his favorites, which is from the album Incentia. Porcupine Tree album, How Is Your Life Today from Lightbulb, Sun from the same band, Blackfield from his Blackfield debut album, and Postcard from Grace from Drowning. It's yeah. So get the CD, brilliant, because you get those tracks on it. If you buy the vinyl, you get those tracks and some. So well worth investing in that. Anyway, this is one of the reasons why that I so viscerally love my live albums. It really comes to the forefront when I think about this album a lot. The way that it captures the genius, the energy, the emotion, the soul crushingly textural and diverse sound of an artist who um, doesn't always transition to record as well as he does live. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again with a lot of musicians. Um, sometimes his albums, like To the Bone, for instance, feels a bit flat. But when you listen to it live and tracks off it live, it gives it a new sparkle and a zest for life. Now, at 3 on the list is a band that has produced many amazing live albums. In fact, one of the greatest live albums ever made. Uh, No Sleep to Hammersmith. But we're talking about modern live albums here, and Motorhead's Louder Than Noise live in Berlin, which released on April 23rd, 2021, is a box set. Okay, it's 2 vinyl records and a CD, and it captures the latter energy of the band towards the end of Lemmy's life. This amazing, amazing historical band. It shows you that from 1976 to 2021, the energy does not dip. It shows you that the filth and the fury, of a quote from the Pistols, still exists within the hands of Lemmy. Sadly, now 2 of them are gone from this lineup. Okay, which is a real sad to say. We've lost Lemmy Kilmister and Phil Campbell, but that particular lineup was Lemmy Kilmister, Phil Campbell, and Mickey D. And as 3-piece go, it's pretty amazing. The album itself is full of atmosphere. It's full of all the classics. It's got I Know How to Die, Damage Case, Stay Clean, Metropolis, Over the Top, Dr. Rock, String Theory, The Chase is Better Than the Catch, which is one of my favorites ever. And if you buy the vinyl, there's extra bits on it. You've got Rocket, You Better Run, the one to sing the blues, Going to Brazil, Killed by Death, Ace of Spades, Overkill. And then on the CD, we've added the CD is the same. It's just compacted down into one. So I thought it was extras on there. I've got that in my collection. I should double check that. No, the album itself is a box set live in Berlin. It says it all. It doesn't need to say much else. This is one of the better live albums of the last 10 years, purely because it's the death throes of a behemoth of the music world. It's a time when the world was going through its COVID and nonsense. People were scared, not listening to music, running to the hills, as they say. And yet we release a live album here, louder than noise, live in Berlin, and it just sums up everything there is about Motorhead. I know people say they prefer other lineups. I know that, but I don't know. For me, this is a great live album. Now, it was recorded on the 5th of December 2012 at the Velodrome in Berlin during the band's Kings of the Road tour. So I know it wasn't recorded back in the 10-year period, but it was released in this 10-year period. So I'm sort of being a bit flexible with it. I don't know. Again, as I said before, if there's overdubs or whatever, I don't know. This is just a brilliant album that shows a band at their brutal, fast, angry, rock and roll, drug-fueled drunkenness that makes Motorhead so bloody wonderful. If there was one band at number 2 that really represented, it was the right band to release a live album and capturing their sound perfectly, is Sabaton. Now, obviously, people know I like Sabaton. I really love them. I saw them with my good friend Benji recently. And I'm new to the Sabaton party, to be brutally honest. I'm not as a big a fan as dear Benji, but I do love the music. And their live show was extremely entertaining. It was as I mean, I saw the live show on the movies. They released a live show on the movies. I also saw them live in concert here in Sydney. And this one here, the Great Show, which was released on the 19th of November 2021, captures their massive January 26, 2020 performance at the O2 Arena in Prague during the Great War Tour, and notably features fiery orchestral backing from the Finnish cello rockers Apocalyptica. And I spoke to them before. This is a 18-track fan favorite masterwork from the band. It is now I am going to probably imagine this has been cleaned and polished. I know when I talked to the band, they said that they didn't, and there wasn't much overdubs, or if any. So hopefully there isn't. When I talked to Joachim, that's what he mentioned to me. The concert features an explosive set of 18 tracks. I said Ghost Division, Great War, Attack of the Dead Men, which is brilliant, by the way. Seven Pillars of Wisdom, The Lost Battalion, Red Baron, The Last Stand, Far from the Flame, Night Witches, Angels Calling, featuring Apocalyptica, Fields of Verdun, featuring Apocalyptica, Price of a Mile, featuring the same Apocalyptica, and also featuring Apocalyptica. How many times can you say that? The Lion from the North, and Callus Rex. And then you've got Prima Victoria and Bismarck, Swedish Pagans, and To Hell and Back to finish. It did come with a DVD and a Blu-ray set, often bundled. It was released simultaneously on the 20th anniversary of the Wacken concert. You can check availabilities. You can get it from their web store and all sorts of places. It's still out to yet. I think it sort of sits there with one of the best modern live albums because it captures the band absolutely perfectly. Their sort of verboseness, their almost camp silliness in the way that they treat um, the, the war material with such sort of power metal overtures. There is a sense of the absurd with Sabaton. I think that's because they themselves know the subject matter is absurd. The fact that we as human species destroy each other so rampantly and so in such disgusting ways, but also at the same time bring forth such heroism and bravery, that there is a sort of madness to a sort of uh, what are we doing kind of nod over our shoulders, and I think this album brings it. So for me, certainly Sabaton's it's a 2021 album, The Great War, is well worth a listen. Now, what have I got at the number one spot? Like I said, these aren't in order, by the way. It's just the way I've written them down. But what do I have at number one? Well, this one was I was struggling to find lots of albums, to be honest. And so when I saw this one, I thought, yep, this has to sit there in this top five, because if I didn't put it in there, I would be remiss of me. And that would have to be by a band that was my very first live experience, and that's Black Sabbath. The End, live in Birmingham. Now, they have released a fair few great live albums. I particularly love this one because, again, it's one of those albums that brings the sort of beauty of the band out in the latter stages of their career. It also gives a little bit of new insight to people who haven't listened to the band, who didn't know. This gives you a good look at a particular point in the band's career. It was it's played in their hometown of Birmingham, which is very important for me because that's where they started. That's where heavy metal began. It was recorded in their hometown on the 4th of February 2017, and it has an almighty set list. Okay, let me go through this brilliant set. Firstly, the lineup with Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, Ozzy Osbourne, and Bill Ward. They wrote all the songs, but this lineup was all of that except Bill Ward. Okay, we have Tommy Clufotis filling for the original band of drummer of Bill Ward, as well as keyboards and guitarist Adam Wakeman on the keyboards. The actual set is you've got opens with Black Sabbath, then we've got Fairies Wear Boots, Under the Sun, Every Day Comes and Goes from Volume 4. Very rare one, that one, not played that often. This is another thing, some tracks you don't hear live often. After Forever, Into the Void, Snowblind, Then you've got War Pigs, Behind the Walls of Sleep, NIB, Hand of Doom, Supernaut, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Megalomania instrumental melody, Rat Salad with a drum solo, of course, Iron Man, Dirty Women, Children of the Grave, and Paranoid. Now, I saw them on this tour. We saw them on this tour, I should say. And it was in Australia, and it was pretty bloody amazing. And I don't remember. I remember them ending the whole album on the whole gig on Dirty Women, which is my favourite song. It's actually my favourite Tony Iommi solo ever. And it's off the album Techno Ecstasy, which I've talked about, which people absolutely hate. I love it. I love it to bits. It was from 1976. The track is 8 minutes and 22 seconds long. There's lots of extemporization in it. And to finish the gig on Paranoid, it would be different to what they played here because this is their hometown concert. It was 1 hour and 47 minutes long. It was a concert that I went to. It meant a lot to me. I cried and cried and cried when Tony played the very last note of Dirty Women and walked off stage. And I felt that that was the end. I thought, well, here we go. My musical journey begins and ends. Is bookmarked here. I thought, where do I go? Sabbath is gone, but the wonderful thing is I got to enjoy it with my darling wife and good friends, and got to say goodbye to a legend. And yeah, well, not just a legend of a band and a legend musicians. You know, just to hear things like Under the Sun, Every Day Comes and Goes, you know, After Forever, you know, Hand of Doom, Supernaut, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Dirty Women. That was as I said, that was the one I wasn't expecting, and when we got it, it really, really took me by. It sort of, it. I said it. It knocked me sideways. It knocked me bandy, as my dad would have said. Yeah, yeah. And then we had nothing released from them until the box set from 2 years ago, Anno Domini 89 95, the Tony Martin era release, which I, of course, I love dearly and have very close to my heart. But this album, this live album, grabs you just how you expect it to be. It is exactly how you expect it. It's the band I think, at an emotional peak. No Bill Ward, yes, I get that. But Bill Ward is a tortured soul, alcoholic, issues with his drinking and his life habits and, family and all that sort of stuff that took him away from the band long before he should have done. But he still was there writing this brilliant music, and every track here that is played in this album has Bill Ward's signature drum sound right across it, whether it's been played by him or someone else. It's a fantastic album. It charted. Let's have a look here. It charted pretty well. I mean, it went to number one in Switzerland, 2 in Germany, 3 in UK. Where have we got? We got any in Australia? No. US, it got to number 10 in indie stores, number 43 in the normal album, normal stores, and it went certified gold, so 10,000 plus copies certified sales. So it's not they're not selling mega numbers of these albums, but if you do grab it and you do listen to it, and you have seen Sabbath any amount of times, when you listen to this album live, it does give you a little lump in the throat because you can hear the emotion in Ozzy's voice. You can hear the deterioration of Ozzy's voice, yes, and the deterioration of his health, and of Tony's, of course. But it doesn't come across with the energy. The energy is still there. It's still a brilliant live album. And if I was to put it in order, that probably, if there was seminal sense of order, it probably would be at number one. But as I said, these are just my top 5 the last 10 or so years. Do they compare now to the live albums of the past? No, they don't. The live albums of the past are far better. A, because nostalgically they live rent free in my memory. and in the memory of millions of people. Uh, they show an era in music where live was the most important thing, and the ability to entertain was paramount. They show a time when money and effort was put into it to recreate as best they could without trickery the best live sound that they could possibly get. The same sound that the audience heard when they walked before they left the auditorium or the theatre or the venue, wherever they are. When they walked away with the music still ringing in their ears, a month or so later, when they bought the album because they were there and they put it on, it should sound exactly as they remember it. And sometimes with these live albums, you get this visceral smell of the sweat, the ringing of the ears, the stickiness of the floors, the crushed audience, the beer soaked um, adolescence, the nausea, the making out with with strangers, the singing along, the throat rawness, and the sore necks, and head banging away, and the excuses you made the next day not to go to work because you felt a bit sick. You think you got a cold coming on. Honestly, I do, boss. I do. I use that a few times. I won't deny that. And those sort of things are what you get from that physically warm and nostalgic out live album. The new ones, as I said, they do represent these bands well. They represent what they mean. But will they be held in the same regard as Live in Leeds and you know things like that? I really Live After Death, and um, I just don't know if they will. I think they'll sort of disappear amongst the Where Are They Now album file stacks and the Spotify and Apple Music algorithms, sadly. But who knows? There might be a generation out there who have them. So first time I heard the band, first time I've ever heard the band, and think, wow, this is what I want. I want to see them live. Or I can't now, but at least I can live with this measure. I can daydream and imagine I was there, as I often did with Live in Kilburn, the Who out concert which my brother was at. I often listen to the album and imagine, Andy standing there in the crowd, uh, and just being blown away by a band as immense as the Who, and a level of their fame as they were right then. Anyway, that's enough for me. I'd love to know what your top 5 vintage live albums are and your top 5 modern live albums are. As I said, do contact me. Spotify comments, put it in the comments. I do love a good comment on Spotify. Don't get a lot of them. YouTube, Facebook messenger me. Anyway, that's the way to do it. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I did. It certainly took me down a path that I enjoyed very much. And also thanks for the single from the Legion of Decadence, the Quebecian heavy, traditional and progressive and dark heavy metal band with a brilliant female singer that will honestly blow your socks off. The drum intro into the beginning of it is wonderful. Yes, I hope that you enjoyed it. Thanks again for everything, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.